I want you to picture yourself walking through the Higashi-Chofu district in Tokyo's Oda Ward.
Right, specifically the area that we know today as Denenchofu.
Yeah, exactly. And if you were to just, stroll through there this afternoon, you would be surrounded by this highly affluent, incredibly quiet, just meticulously planned Garden City suburb.
It really is. It's the absolute picture of manicured modern wealth.
Right. You've got the perfect landscaping, expensive cars in the driveways, these radial streets that look like they were drawn with a compass.
Yeah, it feels almost completely sanitized, like a movie set of a perfect neighborhood, where everything is calm and ordered.
Entirely predictable. But underneath those perfectly paved streets and luxury homes lies this hidden matrix that is, well, it is anything but calm.
Oh, definitely not calm.
We are talking about ancient tombs, samurai outposts, vanished glass cities, rebel artifacts.
All just buried right there under the wealth.
Exactly. So today we are taking a deep dive into some really fascinating historical research and architectural analysis focused on the geo-historical and spatial ontology of this exact district.
Which I know spatial ontology sounds like incredibly heavy academic jargon.
It does sound a bit dry, yeah.
But it's actually a really beautiful concept when you break it down. Spatial ontology is basically asking, well, how does the physical land shape human behavior?
Right.
And in return, how does human trauma or human ambition physically reshape the land?
That is such a cool way to look at a city. So we're going to explore 5 deeply hidden historical layers beneath this modern wealth. And we'll tell you the exact physical spots, these little tourist hidden gems where you can actually go to feel this history for yourself.
You can literally touch it.
Yes. And perhaps most importantly, we are going to explore this overarching theory from the sources. This idea that for centuries, this specific piece of land has acted as a giant spiritual energy dissipator.
A place that just absorbs human anxiety and chaos.
And transforms it into physical order. Okay, let's unpack this. To understand how a piece of land eats trauma, I guess we have to look at the ground itself.
Well,
Right?
you do, because
Yeah.
the physical geography is the engine for all the human drama that plays out here.
Set the scene for us.
Okay, so this entire area sits right on the edge of what is known as the Kokubunji Cliff.
Okay.
And historically, the locals called the sharp drop-off the hake. The cliff basically plunges straight down into the floodplains of the Tama River.
So you have this massive, sudden geographical boundary, high dry ground on top, and then this wet, totally unpredictable river valley down below.
Exactly. And, in the indigenous worldview of the people living there centuries ago, a physical boundary is never just physical.
It takes on a deeper meaning.
Right. It becomes a spiritual boundary.
Yeah.
The plateau is the space of order, safety, the living, while the flooding river plain below was absolute chaos. The cliff edge was a liminal space, a literal border between the world you can control and the darker, unpredictable forces of nature.
Which perfectly explains our first historical layer. Because between the 4th and 7th centuries, the powerful local clans who controlled the agriculture there decided to build massive tombs right along that specific cliff edge.
The Tamagawa Daikofun group.
Yes. And I mean, if I'm an ancient ruler, I'm not just building a tomb on a cliff for the scenic view,
No, not at all.
I'm putting a monument on the border of chaos.
You're staking a claim on the spiritual edge. And the sheer scale of these things is staggering.
For huge, right?
Massive. They built a dense network of these tombs, including the Horizon Kofun, which is this keyhole-shaped earthwork stretching over 107.5 meters long.
Wow. Over 100 meters.
But what's fascinating here is the deliberate sacred geometry they employed. The main axis of these tombs aligns perfectly with Mount Fuji to the northwest.
Wait, so they are visually linking the burial mound directly to the mountain?
Actually, it's more than just visually. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, if you stand at the site, the setting sun drops right behind the volcano. Yeah. And the light shoots straight across the plateau, casting perfectly along the axis of these tombs. It was engineered to create a direct spiritual channel.
That is incredible.
It connects the living world on the high ground, runs through the ancestors resting in the tombs, and beams all the way to the afterlife and the volcano god of Mount Fuji.
It's essentially an ancient spiritual laser pointer.
A laser pointer, yeah.
I mean, they were using these massive backbreaking earthworks to literally plug their dead into the most powerful geological force on the horizon.
It takes an unbelievable amount of centralized power and spatial awareness to pull that off.
And the research points out that you could actually still go to the spot where this happens today.
You can, yeah. If you want to experience this alignment yourself, you have to head to the observation deck at the Tamagawa Sengen Shrine.
And the shrine is built right on top of the tomb, isn't it?
Directly on top of one of these ancient circular tombs.
The sensory details from the sources about this spot are just incredible. Because of all the dense vegetation clinging to the cliffside, as you climb up the steps to the shrine, you can actually feel the ambient temperature drop by 2 to 3 degrees.
It physically cools down.
Right. And you stand on this observation deck, which is the front edge of an ancient tomb, mind you, and you can smell the damp air rolling off the Tama River. And it's mixed with this heavy scent of ancient pine and soil.
You are physically standing on that laser pointer looking right over the edge of chaos.
But it's not all ancient wonder, is it?
Yeah.
Because reading the research, you feel this sharp sense of modern tragedy there, too.
Yeah, unfortunately. Not all of this sacred geometry survived the 20th century.
What happened?
Well, there was another tomb nearby, recorded in the archives as the Nishioka number 47 tomb. It was perfectly preserved, perfectly circular, 30 meters wide, and still covered in its original ancient paving stones.
Oh, no. Given Tokyo's aggressive urbanization, I'm terrified to ask what happened to it.
In 1956, it was completely flattened.
Unbelievable.
And not for a hospital or a crucial railway line or anything. It was destroyed to build a parking lot for a nearby monastery.
A parking lot. A 30-meter, 1,500-year-old sacred monument turned into a place to park cars.
Just paved right over.
That is such a jarring clash between ancient spiritual order and mundane modern convenience. And the archaeological records from the time are apparently just completely blank.
Blank. They didn't even survey the stone chambers or the burial goods before bringing in the bulldozers. A total physical erasure.
That breaks my heart. But I guess that tension on the cliff edge, that deep human need to control this space, it didn't stop with ancient tombs, did it?
No, it evolved. As society changed, the way they managed that boundary shifted from spiritual monuments to literal military force.
Okay, so let's jump to the 13th century, during the Kamakura period. By this time, the Tama River down below the cliff had carved out this really deep natural basin.
Right, it formed a port known as Ryoto.
And this port was incredibly strategic, because a major regional highway, the Kamakura-Kaido, met the water right at this exact spot.
Exactly. And if you have a major highway hitting a deep water river, you have a vital economic choke point.
And if you have a choke point, you need a garrison.
You need soldiers. The Kamakura samurai built a military lookout on a high peninsula jutting out over the Ryoto port.
So they're physically looming over the trade route.
Right. And they also installed a shrine to Hachiman, the god of war, to act as a kind of spiritual lock on the river border.
So they are guarding against physical enemies, but also against the chaotic energy of the floodplain itself.
Yes. But, as we know, military power is pretty fleeting.
Right, because in 1590, the political winds in Japan shift entirely. The powerful Hojo clan is completely defeated.
And those samurai who manned that military bunker are suddenly on the losing side. They're stripped of their purpose, fleeing for their lives, and they end up back at this exact peninsula.
And this is where that concept of the land as an energy dissipator really comes into focus for me.
It really does, because instead of abandoning the site or, committing seppuku, these defeated, traumatized samurai just settle there.
They stay.
They stay.
Yeah.
And they take this aggressive military watchtower and fundamentally transform it. They turn it into a guardian shrine for farming.
Wow.
They use the space to pacify the spirits of their dead lords and to protect the new agricultural community they are suddenly forced to build.
That is just a staggering psychological pivot. You're taking a structure explicitly built for war and surveillance, and you are flipping its entire ontology to sustain life.
Exactly, to agriculture and community healing.
It's the equivalent of turning a military watchtower into a peaceful community garden.
And you can really feel the weight of that transformation today if you visit the hidden gem associated with this layer, which is the Denenchofu Shrine.
The sources say that to get there, you have to climb these uneven, totally moss-covered stone stairs that were constructed back in 1802.
Yeah, it's a very atmospheric climb.
And the moment you cross into the shrine grounds, the acoustic environment completely changes. Like the noise of the modern city just vanishes.
Replaced entirely by the sound of wind blowing through these giant ancient pines.
And you get this heavy, thick scent of old wood, camphor, and incense.
It's a space heavily imbued with the silence of those defeated samurai trying to find a new kind of peace.
But wait, there's a massive geological mystery tied to this site that the sources highlight, right?
Oh, this is one of the strangest parts. That deep water port down below Royado, the whole reason the military bunker was there in the first place.
Yeah.
By the year 1597, it had completely vanished.
I kept rereading that part of the research. How does a deep water harbor just disappear?
It literally turned into a shallow, muddy swamp in a matter of years.
But how do we even know that happened so fast?
We know the timeline because engineers trying to build the Rokugo-Yosui Canal at that exact moment in history had to suddenly dig a tunnel. The deep port they were relying on for their plans was just gone.
Was it a massive flood? Or like an earthquake that shifted the riverbed?
We don't know.
Really?
The historical archives are totally silent on how a deep natural harbor silted up so violently and quickly. It's just a blank spot in the record.
The Earth literally swallowed a massive piece of military and economic infrastructure without a trace.
Gone.
Which is terrifying if you live there. But I guess it also proves that while the Earth can swallow things up, it can also spit things back out to trigger new chaos.
It certainly can. Which brings us to the 16th century, the Sengoku period.
Right. So we have a local samurai named Oga Yasusuke. He's out inspecting his land in Yukigaya village, and he unearths something.
He digs up an ancient stone intricately carved with the Lotus Sutra mandala.
Now, finding a cool ancient artifact in your backyard is one thing, but I'm highly skeptical of the timing here.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he just happened to find the ultimate divine artifact right when he needed a political favor.
Your skepticism is entirely justified. To really understand this, we have to look at the political anxiety of the moment.
Okay.
Oda Yasusuke was technically serving the Hojo clan. They were the overlords of the region, but he absolutely despised them.
Ah, I see where this is going.
Right. And in the religious worldview of the 16th century, the Lotus Sutra was the ultimate symbol of divine truth. Unearthing it wasn't viewed as just a fun archaeological curiosity. It was interpreted as a literal miracle.
A miracle that provides some very convenient cover for treason.
Precisely. He used the discovery of this mandala stone as undeniable proof of heavenly legitimacy.
So he just points to the rock and says, look, God's on my side.
He essentially broadcasted to the whole region, the gods have shown me this sign, therefore my land is uniquely sacred and I am divinely authorized to reject my current rulers.
Wow.
And he leveraged this spiritual anomaly to ally with a rival warlord, Isugi Kenshin, and launch a massive, bloody rebellion.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it's no different from a modern politician using a conveniently timed divine sign or, a fabricated piece of propaganda to justify a coup.
It's the exact same playbook.
The stone wasn't just a rock, it was a geopolitical weapon. He took the anxiety of his political situation and manifested it through this physical object to completely alter the power structure.
And the location where he enshrined that political weapon is our next spot to visit.
The Yukigaya Hachiman Shrine.
Yes. If you visit today, you can find the ancient Koshin towers right on the grounds. You can reach out and touch the rough, cold granite.
And the atmosphere there is apparently very serene. You can smell the sake left out as offerings, the fresh-cut grass. But then that peace is violently interrupted.
By the train.
Yes, the physical rumble of the Tokyo Ikigami line train passing right by.
Which is such an incredible physical manifestation of the history.
It really is.
You have this quiet spiritual space on the surface, but you feel the vibration, the deep historical tension literally trembling beneath your feet.
Speaking of tension, what actually happened to the mandala stone that started the war? Because it's not at the shrine today, is it?
No, it's not. It disappeared from the historical record entirely during the Meiji era.
How does a holy rock just vanish?
Well, at that time, the government instituted this sweeping policy to legally separate Shinto and Buddhism. Because for centuries, the two had been deeply intertwined in Japan, like at this very shrine. But the new mandate required shrines to be purely Shinto.
So they had a clean house.
Exactly. As a result of this massive bureaucratic overhaul, countless Buddhist artifacts were systematically removed, hidden away, or just destroyed.
Wow.
The mandala stone was almost certainly a casualty of that administrative purge, leaving just a permanent physical gap in the history of the district.
The irony there is just astounding. The very object that sparked a massive regional war is quietly erased by a bureaucratic filing policy centuries later.
It really puts things in perspective.
Okay, so far we talked about elites, right? Ancient kings, samurai, warlords manipulating this space. But what about the common people?
That's a great question.
If we move into the 1830s, we see how ordinary people use the land to process their own distinct anxieties.
Yes, the Edo period. Here we are introduced to a man named Ichisan Gyosha.
Tell us about him.
He was an ascetic, someone who subjected himself to extreme physical and spiritual disciplines. We're talking standing under freezing waterfalls in the dead of winter deep in the high mountains.
Intense.
Very. And during one of these intense sessions, he claimed to receive a divine revelation, instructing him to travel to a ruined, overgrown shrine in Mine Village, which is right in our district, and restore it.
But he doesn't just sweep the floors and rebuild a wooden box, does he? He builds something extraordinary based on a concept called mitai-te.
Right.
How does mitai-way work in this context?
So mitai translates roughly to spatial mimicry or spatial projection. At this time, Mount Ontake, located far away in the distant Alps, was a massive pilgrimage site.
A very holy place to visit.
Extremely holy. But if you were a commoner living in Edo, modern-day Tokyo, you were bound by your geography. You didn't have the time, the financial resources, or the physical safety to walk hundreds of miles into the freezing mountains.
You were stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Ichisan Joja used mitate. He built a 4-meter-tall artificial mountain, an Ontakizuka, right there in the village.
Wait, he built a scale model of a holy mountain in a suburb.
Yes, exactly. It had winding paths that perfectly mimicked the real mountain trails and little stone monuments representing the real geographical landmarks.
That is amazing.
And the local belief developed that climbing this miniature artificial mountain 3 times gave you the exact same spiritual credit as making one actual perilous trip to the real Mount Ontake.
It is quite literally a 19th century VR headset.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
I mean, if you can't travel to the simulation, you bring the simulation to your backyard.
Yeah.
These people were physically and economically trapped. So Ichisan Joja built them a physical interactive hack to achieve spiritual salvation without leaving their zip code.
It was a profound democratization of the sacred. The anxiety of being cut off from spiritual cleansing was just solved through architectural mimicry.
And you can still visit the site where this happened, right?
It can. It's the Mine Ontake Shrine.
And the transition from the modern street to the shrine sounds jarring in the best way. Like you step off this busy, brightly lit shopping avenue, pass through these giant stone gates, and suddenly you're staring at these 400-year-old couple pines.
And the air smells sharply of pine resin. You can see these intricate wood carvings on the shrine building.
But the ultimate sensory experience there today is drawing water from the spirit forest well.
Oh, yes.
It's this freezing cold water that is believed to be spiritually and energetically linked to the high mountain lakes of the real Mount Ontake.
That water is a beautiful survival of the history, but just like the ancient tomb we talked about earlier.
Oh, no. Let me guess, the modern era wasn't kind to this either. Flattened for another parking lot.
The magnificent 4-meter artificial mountain itself is completely gone, flattened to make way for the expansion of the Tokyu Railway and to capitalize on rising land prices.
Man.
The mountain that provided spiritual salvation to the poor was leveled to build transportation infrastructure for a rapidly modernizing, wealthier society.
That is just a painful erasure. Which brings us to our final historical layer, moving into the 1930s.
Yeah.
We've talked about mimicking mountains, but this last story is about mastering the floodplains. We are back down off the cliff in the low-lying basin of the Tama River.
And at this time, it was still a muddy, dangerous, frequently flooded mess.
A totally hostile environment.
It was a wasteland, completely unsuitable for traditional farming. But a group of about 30 visionary horticulturists looked at this disaster zone and decided to fight back.
And they formed what became known as the Tamagawa Greenhouse Village.
Yes.
But they didn't just dig irrigation ditches, they built a massive, sprawling complex of steel frames and imported flat glass.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the spatial ontology we've been discussing all day, this was not just gardening. This was a thermodynamic conquest of chaos.
A thermodynamic conquest, I love that.
Because the river plain was defined by freezing winter temperatures, harsh winds, unpredictable floods. But by building these massive glass structures, they trapped solar energy.
They created a closed loop.
They fundamentally altered the local environment.
They built a springtime universe. They used these greenhouses to grow incredibly delicate, high-maintenance crops like carnations and high-end sweet melons that they sold to Tokyo's elite.
In the middle of a freezing floodplain.
It makes me think of the concept of colonizing a hostile planet. They basically engineered a giant, climate-controlled biodome on an alien, muddy world. It is a total physical rejection of the idea that humans must remain at the mercy of their environment.
It was an absolute triumph of engineering and willpower over a chaotic space.
And you can still go to the exact area today. though you have to look very, very closely to see the history.
Very closely.
Right? If you get off at the Tamagawa Onshitsumura bus stop, which literally translates to Tamagawa Greenhouse Village, you can smell the sweet sandy wind blowing off the river.
But the greenhouses themselves?
Completely gone now. They were entirely wiped out when the area was rezoned for the high-end residential housing we see today. But if you walk through those expensive neighborhoods and inspect the modern housing walls, you can still spot the remnants.
The physical ghosts of the biodomes.
Yes. You can see the old red bricks and tough stones that were originally part of the greenhouse drainage systems, now repurposed, baking in the summer sun, literally holding up the walls of modern mansions.
It is the perfect metaphor for the entire district.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from ancient clans building sun-aligning tombs on the edge of a cliff to samurai turning war bunkers into farming shrines.
A rebel using a magic stone to launch a coup.
Commoners building a VR mountain for salvation.
And farmers building thermodynamic glass biodomes in a wasteland.
What does this all mean for the spatial ontology of Denenchofu?
The grand thesis that emerges from these sources is that over centuries, this entire district has acted as a highly efficient spiritual energy dissipator. Think about what every single one of these eras shares. The land takes in trauma, chaos, and disaster. It absorbs the threat of a flooding river, the grief of defeated samurai, the political anxiety of a warlord, the spiritual desperation of trapped commoners, and the freezing mud of a wasteland.
And it doesn't just hold that trauma, it transforms it.
Exactly. It transforms that chaotic energy into highly ordered, beautiful, sacred geometries. Shrines, laser-aligned tombs, artificial mountains, glass biodomes.
Right.
The physical land is used to process human anxiety and turn it into physical order.
That completely recontextualizes how you look at the wealth of Denenchofu today. Because when Aichi Shibusawa, the famous industrialist, built the modern, affluent, radial streets of Denenchofu in the early 20th century, he wasn't just dropping a random European garden city template onto a blank map.
No, not at all.
He was laying those perfectly ordered geometric streets onto a landscape that had already been geometrically primed by centuries of this exact process. The modern wealthy city is just the latest layer of geometry trying to keep the chaos at bay.
The pristine lawns and quiet streets are just the modern version of the samurai shrine or the commoner's artificial mountain.
The ground beneath your feet is never just dirt. It's a recorded history of human resilience and anxiety. Thank you for coming on this incredible journey through the hidden layers of Higashi-Chofu with us.
But before we let you go, this deep dive raises an important question, one we want you to mull over the next time you walk through your own city.
Oh, I like this.
If this district acted as an energy dissipator for the traumas of ancient samurai and Edo-period commoners, what kind of physical spaces are we unknowingly building today to absorb and manage the unique anxieties of our modern world? What will archaeologists 500 years from now think our sprawling shopping malls or our massive, windowless, humming server farms are trying to protect us from?
That is a haunting thought to leave on. Keep looking past the manicured lawns, keep questioning the space around you, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.